Hey folks, this is Riker with a gaming news wrap-up video where we discuss the happenings of the week. This week's topics include the kickoff of the Diablo 2 Resurrected Alpha, huge Path of Exile news, a new class coming to Torchlight 3 for free, and more. As always, discussion timestamps can be found in the video description below. But right before you skip ahead, just a quick reminder to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes and stay up to date with gaming news highlights. Now, before we move on, just a quick word from this video's sponsor, NordVPN. Not only is a VPN an important tool for keeping your data secure and encrypted on the internet, but it's also the best way to get around region-blocked content. You can use NordVPN to watch shows that are not available in your country or to play video games that haven't yet released in your country. And NordVPN has over 5,400 servers in 59 different countries. And it's so user-friendly that you're basically one click away from hiding your IP or browsing the web from a different country. And one account lets you connect up to 6 devices, be they computers, phones, tablets, you name it. Plus, you can try NordVPN risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And right now, you can get a 2-year plan at a huge discount at nordvpn.com/Riker and use code Riker to get 1 additional month free. That's nordvpn.com/Riker to take control of your internet again. In our first quick story, E3 2021 has been confirmed to be an online-only event that will take place between June 12th and June 15th. Nintendo, Xbox, Capcom, Konami, Ubisoft, Take-Two, Warner Bros., and Koch Media are on board. But Sony, EA, Activision Blizzard, Sega, Bandai Namco, and Square Enix are not yet confirmed. There's still time for them to confirm, but I suspect that the move to online-only events in this past year will continue to see a shift of big publishers realizing they can just create their own online-only events in which they don't have to share the spotlight with anyone else. Renting out a major convention center and running a giant convention is a whole lot of overhead. Letting E3 handle it and just showing up to run a booth is a lot less work. But putting up a live stream with some footage is comparatively easy. So one of the major advantages of attending E3 when you're a big name already is heavily diminished when we move to online-only events. In other news, we learned a few more details about Frost Giant Studios, the dev studio founded by ex-Blizzard employees. We've spoken about Frost Giant before. It's a lot of former StarCraft developers who wanted to keep making RTS games, when Activision Blizzard clearly has little interest in funding that sort of game these days. Frost Giant had successfully raised almost $10 million in funding so far, and CEO Tim Morton, former production director and lead producer of StarCraft 2, had a recent interview with OP Attack. OP Attack asked, quote, "We see that a lot of veterans these days are going indie. Everyone has different reasons to take this leap of faith. What is yours? What was the prime motivation behind Frost Giant?" And Morton replied, quote, "There are different pros and cons to working at big companies versus working at small companies. Blizzard is one of the best companies in the business, and it makes sense that their focus right now is on follow-ups to great successes like Overwatch and Diablo. Our passion is RTS games, and we feel incredibly fortunate to have found investors to back our effort to build a new one independently." A lot of former Blizzard employees have spoken about how the company and the culture changed as the company grew. It's just not possible for a company of 20 people to stay the same when it grows to 2,000 people. Morton also said that he expects that his studio will grow to about 40 people by the time they release their first game. They're currently in pre-production for their game, focused on concepting and building core systems. When asked if their game will carry the essence of StarCraft, Morton said, quote, "We very much want to build a game that feels like an evolution of Blizzard RTS games, but our influences will include Warcraft 3, Brood War, and StarCraft 2. We expect to be as different as those games are to each other." As someone who's a big fan of StarCraft and grew up playing Warcraft 2, StarCraft, Warcraft 3, I look forward to seeing what Frost Giant comes up with. In other news, Torchlight 3 has announced a new class coming in their next big free content update. The Cursed Captain, a pirate ghost captain summoner class. The Cursed Captain can summon cannoneers, riflemen, standard crewmates, and a first mate to join him in combat. As the Cursed Captain, you can order the crew to relocate, perform extra skills on demand, or focus fire on a specific target using the Black Spot debuff. You don't have to go with the Summoner build though. The Cursed Captain has a wide array of cursed magic and explosive skills. His resource is doubloons, and instead of using doubloons to pay for your crew, you can load them up into a blunderbuss, for instance, and fire them at your enemies. I just love how they have these inventive and lore-friendly resource mechanics in Torchlight 3. You collect doubloons mid-combat from monsters and treasure, so it's almost like you're using your gold drops as a resource for your skills. The Cursed Captain can also apparently bring his entire ship directly into combat, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that's gonna work. On to some Path of Exile news. This was a great week for PoE. We saw the reveal of the new League Ultimatum, as well as a new Path of Exile 2 trailer. On the PoE 2 side of things, we got a trailer as well as a 20-minute gameplay video. And damn is this game looking amazing. The visuals we see in the PoE 2 trailer are just gorgeous. So well done from both a design and execution standpoint. I always try to differentiate the quality of a game's graphics from the quality of its art direction. You can have, for instance, amazing graphics with uninspired art, or you can have an amazing art direction with bad graphics. And I think PoE is now nailing both of these. Also, the gameplay is looking so buttery smooth. And these are two areas, the smoothness of the combat and the visuals, in which I have deducted points from current Path of Exile. That is to say, the visuals could be better. They're not bad, but they aren't perfect. They aren't absolute top quality. And same thing with the smoothness of the combat. So now if PoE 2 is gonna look this amazing and feel how smooth this seems to be, I don't think I can level any further criticism in those areas. Now, one element that helps make combat feel smooth is animation. And it is abundantly clear that a ton of work has been put into the animations and their transitions in PoE 2. Just really impressive, and it's all looking very next gen. We also got a showcase of 2 new item types and some of their associated skills, spears and crossbows. For crossbows, you equip bolt skill gems that changes the type of bolts loaded into the crossbow. So for instance, you got armor piercing bolts, incendiary bolts, permafrost bolts, and throughout gameplay you can rotate through your different bolt types to adapt to the situation. Maybe you freeze an enemy with a permafrost bolt, then swap to armor piercing to bring the pain. Different crossbows will also have different types of inherent attacks, and the ammo may behave a little bit differently depending on that attack. As for spears, they're going to come with engage and disengage powers to have this fluid melee combat. We see a storm spear that fires lightning projectiles, so Javazons are back on the menu, boys. We see a power called Blazing Lance that creates a trail of fire from the ground, dealing damage over time, but if you stand in place and throw a second spear over that blazing trail, it'll fan the flames, spreading them far across the screen for even more damage. We also got a closer view at the Act 2 town, which is literally a moving caravan. Just such a cool and unique idea for a town. Now, Path of Exile 2 does not have a release date, but the devs are aiming for a closed beta in 2022. Now, onto the new League Ultimatum, or alternatively called Path of Exile Rework. We'll talk about the Ultimatum mechanic itself in a bit, but the devs have reworked an incredible amount of past League content for this expansion. Like, just an absolutely astonishing amount of reworks, and players are seemingly really hyped for the changes. The League will also bring 8 new gems, new vendor recipes for players to discover, dozens of new items, and more. The League mechanic itself involves a trial master who offers you a reward and a challenge to earn that reward, with 3 difficulty modifiers to choose from. If you succeed at the challenge, you'll be presented with an ultimatum. Leave your reward or attempt more challenging encounters for more valuable rewards. Kind of a double or nothing. But, of course, if you ever fail in this chain of increasing trials, you lose all the rewards you've accumulated so far. Also, this league was developed to be very compatible with party play. Each player gets their own rewards, can vote on difficulty modifiers, and can choose whether they want to risk the next round or not. As for the 8 new gems, they're themed around the concept of blood, sacrificing life for power. For instance, there's the new skill Exsanguinate, which uses life instead of mana to shoot tendrils of blood in front of you. And you can use a support gem to have those tendrils chain from one target to the next. Or Corrupting Fever, which consumes your life to give you a damage buff. Or Reap, a strong single target attack whose life cost scales up the more you hit a target, but so does its damage. Then you have the Arrogance support gem, which reserves life instead of mana. Or Bloodthirst support, which makes you deal more damage when you're low on life. Life Tap support, making a skill cost life instead of mana. And the Cruelty support gem, which makes your damage over time abilities deal more damage, since a lot of these blood skills do deal damage over time effects. And of course, there's even more stuff, and links to all this can be found in the video description for you to read more on your own. I feel like PoE has had over the past couple of years this cadence of having one league that's very high concept, tries something really ambitious and risky, and then a relatively safe league with just a more basic but fun mechanic where you just get to kill a lot of monsters. And we just had one of those with Ritual League. So I was expecting another big risky league for Ultimatum, and instead it looks like we got another safe, fun league, but with a really ambitious amount of reworks to old content that should overall be a real crowd pleaser. Ultimatum launches April 21st. And lastly, in Diablo news, the Diablo 2 Resurrected single-player technical alpha began this week and will run until Monday morning, Blizzard time. That's a very short run for an alpha, just about 3-4 days. But there are only 3 classes available: Amazon, Barbarian, and Sorceress, and only the first 2 acts of the game. In the future, there will be a multiplayer alpha, which you can opt into now over at Diablo2.com. You are not automatically opted in if you opted into the first alpha. You have to separately opt into the multiplayer one. And if you're looking to see some Diablo 2 Resurrected gameplay, I have a full playthrough up on YouTube with an Amazon playthrough of all the available content. And later today, I'll be streaming a playthrough with a Barbarian. You can find me live on twitch.tv/Riker. And last night, I streamed a playthrough on Sorceress, which I'll eventually put up on YouTube, along with my Barbarian playthrough. My first impressions of D2R, it's everything I could have wanted. It's the same base game running underneath, but with quality of life changes added, like shared stash, optional auto gold pickup. We now have widescreen support, completely overhauled visuals that are just absolutely gorgeous. It looks like one of the best, if not the best, ARPG that's currently out there, just from a visual standpoint. And perhaps most importantly, it just feels the same. It feels like playing D2, and a lot of it visually just, it's how we imagined or how we remember it looking 20 years ago. It's such a wonderfully nostalgic jaunt. Everything feels so familiar, nothing feels out of place. I have maybe minor gripes, minor complaints over little choices here or there, like how you look when you get frozen. It's a sort of teal color instead of the classic blue, and you kind of look like you're made of clay instead of actually frozen, so I'd rather maybe I'm taking it a little bit further in rehashing that freeze effect, but honestly, my complaints are so small that they're inconsequential. And that's gonna wrap up this week's video. But do be sure to have checked out last week's video in which we discuss our first impressions of the new ARPG, Magic Legends. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Riker's Raiders for more gaming content.